All right. What's up, everybody? It's your girl, the Biblio Geek, and I'm back. And today, I am talking with my brother from another mother. We go way, way back. Yes. I mean, we go back to like wood panel station wagons. Dude, do you remember the parties at the VFW?
That's what I was going to go back to. 26th in Wisconsin, VFW. So
VFW
do you remember
parties?
Do you remember when they used to stop the music at 10:40 and they would kick everybody out that wasn't 17?
Yes.
That's what I'm talking about.
And that was with the what was it? The Angels, Bruce H.
Yeah. So I used to do it with Chuck though. So and I used to be with Chuck, and because Chuck was always DJing, I would just stand because I wasn't old enough. So I would stand behind the DJ booth and they wouldn't put me out. So yeah, we go back.
We are here with Mark Torphy, author of Runaway Train, which was released when?
April 20. Well, I started taking pre-sales April 20th, but I think it was released April 29th.
Tell us a little bit about what the book is about.
So the book is hopefully a visual representation of what I went through during a really, really bad breakup. And this was after being diagnosed with depression. Okay. So it hopefully gives the reader a clear look. Obviously, everybody's depression looks different, but it gives them a clear look of my depression as I was going through a really, really hard time in my life.
Got you. Let's go back to before you wrote the book. So tell me a little bit about yourself, and then what was your journey that brought you to writing this book? Okay,
so I am born and raised in Milwaukee, East Sider, lived 2 blocks from UWM my entire life. Went to UWM, made an agreement with my mom since she didn't want me to go away to school because I was only 17. So the agreement was I could stay on campus, even though I only lived 2 blocks away.
Right.
So lived on campus, enjoyed my college years. After that, moved to Atlanta, married, 3 kids, became a CPA, worked with musicians and athletes throughout most of my career. And marriage started to crumble probably 15 years in.
Okay.
Probably about 15 years in. But that's around the time that I got diagnosed with depression, maybe a couple years after that. And so life was kind of closing in on me. Did not know what it was. You know, you hear about this midlife crisis mess. And I just didn't know what that looked like. So I'm thinking like, man, I have a good business that's profitable and doing well. I got the suburban home. I got this wife. I got these 3 beautiful kids. Like, you know, that's what they say. That's the American dream. I'm living it. Mm-hmm. Why does it feel, can I curse?
Yes.
Okay. Why does it feel like shit? Like that was the biggest question. Right. And so I could not figure out why I was not happy with everything that was going on. I had tons of friends. I was taking trips. Like when you look at it on paper, I should have been very happy in my life. And I'm very appreciative, but I wasn't in a happy space. And so I couldn't figure out why. I started to see a therapist and really just started diving into a lot of what was happening with me and a lot of who I was. I was actually just telling somebody, I've been divorced for about 5 years now. Yeah, we've been split. The divorce was maybe 4 years ago, but we've been split for about 6 years now. Mm-hmm. And I was just telling somebody tonight, my ex-wife probably wouldn't even recognize me. I mean, we talk, but in terms of knowing me and knowing the essence of who I am, and we were married 20 years. And I say that to say in the last 6, I have grown and figured out so much of myself and just become a new man that she probably wouldn't even recognize me. So I say all that to say, got diagnosed. After I was with my ex-wife, after we split, I had a relationship that I actually thought was the one, and it didn't go the way that I hoped and thought and planned, and that's the breakup being described in the book.
Gotcha. Okay, so you kind of mentioned how you were feeling during right before you were diagnosed with depression. Were there any other symptoms that you had before you were diagnosed with depression?
Yeah, so it was a bunch of stuff that was making me question. Like, it was definitely the moodiness and the sadness. And I figured maybe that's due to the marriage. Around the time I think I was turning 40, or maybe I just turned 40, so maybe it was the whole early 40s trying to figure out the second half of your life type thing. But like, I've always had a thing about keeping a lot of people around me. And the book goes into my abandonment issues and stuff like that. But before I realized that that's what it was, I was seeking validation. I was seeking companionship. I was seeking, like, this is really hard to say, and it's not anything I'm proud of, but like, I didn't allow my wife of 20 years to be my best friend. Mm-hmm. Most people say they marry their best friend. I did not. And so in me, I'm looking for somebody to fill that. I mean, I had best friends, but I'm also looking for the love to fill that hole. And so now I'm out at all hours of the night with my boys or with crew. I'll say crew because our crew is guys and girls, but I'm out with crew. I mean, I'm doing all kind of things, like doing all this entertainment stuff for work. None of that is including my wife, because I didn't think that was what I was looking for to fill me. I was looking for something outside of the home. I wasn't coming home a lot. I was working. I had an office that was outside of my home at the time. And so, I mean, I would literally work sometimes until 4 a.m. And it's not like I was just in the streets looking for girls. No, I was actually at the office. She could call me, anything. I was there. But it was because I wasn't trying to be home.
Yeah.
And what I realized also later, though, what that did is this is around the time my oldest was a junior and a senior in high school. So I missed a lot of spending time with him before he went off to college. Mm-hmm. And so when I realized that was one of the problems, I made sure that I wasn't going to do that with my younger two. But so stuff like that, like missing out on your kid, hanging out in the streets, still acting 20 when you're 42, like stuff like that. That was just, it let me know that there was something real going on.
Okay. So writing a book. So my question is, did you want to be a writer before you did this? Or, okay, so you didn't?
No.
Really?
So it would surprise you that growing up, I hated reading. Like, hated. And my mom's a librarian.
I know.
And I hated reading. So, but no, like, it's funny, it started in therapy. Mm-hmm. And I was in a horrible space, and I couldn't concentrate. The Runaway Train, like, I'll back up and describe. So the reason the book is called Runaway Train is because in a depressive episode, my mind just races. And like, I literally can't, it races so fast, and a lot of times I can't even process thoughts. Like, it's just going. Sometimes it's looping, sometimes the thoughts are new, but it just moves so fast that I can't really process. And so it's kind of like, it's like a train. If you can picture a train on a hill, it's just heavy and it's picking up steam and all that. So that's what my mind does.
Okay.
I say that to say, I was at that point in this, the breakup had just happened. I couldn't focus. I'm literally going to work for 8 hours a day doing nothing because I can't focus. And so, because I'm working in the office at this point. And so I go to therapy and I tell her that I'm struggling and that I can't concentrate. And she tells me, okay, well, next time you do that, next time you're in a place where you can't concentrate and it's hard to catch your thoughts, just try to write down whatever you can. Write down how you're feeling, write down what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And so it was easier for me. I work in a 3-monitor kind of setting. So I had 2 monitors up with my work, but then I had 1 monitor that had Word open. And literally anytime I would get stuck and couldn't do nothing, which was all day, I just turned and I would start writing. And I would just start typing into Word. The catch was, she told me at the end of the day, turn off your computer and don't save nothing. And she said, or she said, if you write it down, just throw it away. Because she wanted me to get my thoughts out, but she said rereading it is putting them back in.
Gotcha.
So I wasn't supposed to do that. But after writing for a while, me, I don't always listen. So I went ahead and I started reading it, and I was like, there's something I can do with this. I didn't know it was going to turn into a book, but I knew I wanted to keep it because I felt like there was something more and something bigger than me that I was writing. I didn't know if it could help my kids. I didn't know what it could do, but I just knew I wanted to keep it. I used to songwrite back in the day, and so I'm thinking maybe I'll make a couple songs out of this. I don't know. but just something. And so I kept it. And probably after 3 days of that, I was like, you know what? I think this could become a book. And so I turned to two really, really good friends of mine. Shit, you know them both. Alicia,
yes,
birthday, and Parisha McCall. And I would start sending them like chapters, just like, yo, just tell me what you think about this. Tell me how this sounds, blah, blah, blah. And it all started to develop into a book. But that was not my intention. and then I come up literally, it took me 30 days to write the first draft because I was writing every day.
Wow.
Yeah, I had so much shit to get out. Like it was unreal. And then I was thinking like, okay, I'm probably duplicating some stuff. I wasn't duplicating. Like it was all new and different thoughts, and it was just so much to get out. But that was, I would say, 70% of my healing.
Right.
Being able to write it down.
Right. Wow. So this book is therapy for you.
Oh my God. Complete.
Yeah.
Yeah, total therapy.
So do you think that it will be therapy for others then?
That's my hope.
Yeah.
That's because, I could just wrote it and printed it out at Kinko's and kept it to myself. But the hope is that, because I know I've always had a big mouth. And I know I could talk, but I also know that like, because of my songwriting, because I used to do that, and like I've always been a person that expressed emotion, expressed feelings, like I've been transparent like that. And so that's one of the things that I felt I could bring to something. Yeah. I could be transparent. Most of the people that I talk to, the guys, I mean, we talk about little stuff, but not like that. And so then when I talk to my female friends and they're always wondering, well, why did he do such and such? Why is he acting like this, blah, blah. I'm just thinking like, okay, well, this can at least let him know maybe he got some shit going on. Yeah. Because I know if my ex-wife read this, she would be like, wow, I had no idea all this shit was going on. I doubt she'd read it, but if she did, like this would be a whole bunch of stuff. And so, yeah, it was the hope that people would read it and realize like, yo, us guys, like we actually do feel shit. We may drink it away, we may smoke it away, we may act tough and fight it away or whatever. But at the end of the day, that's because that's some trauma. Like you dig far enough, you'll find our emotions because they're in there for sure.
Right. I think that was one of the most remarkable things about the book for me. There were two things really. The fact that you were so candid and so open about your emotions and your vulnerabilities and how you were feeling through all of this. But the fact that I didn't know 90% of what was happening with you, like, and just for y'all sake.
We talk.
Whoever's
watching this, we talk.
Right. And so I was just like blown away when I read the draft, because I was like, how? And I remember you asked me like, what do you think? And I was just like, because I was so stunned by what I read that, because you did a really good job of masking it around me, at least around me, where I was just like, I had no idea, because to me, you want to say, Mark, that, you always have been, right? And to see how much pain you were in, that really shocked me. I was stunned by that.
Yeah, it actually, so there was I didn't mind being vulnerable to my people, like y'all.
Right.
Because y'all make me feel safe. But there was a point when the book was, the printer had let me know that the book had been shipped. And so it was coming, and it was a Friday, and I was just like, oh shit, like everybody's about to know all of this. And so for about a couple seconds, I was shook a little bit. But then at the end of the day, I was like, you know what? My initial intention was this. I want people to know, like I do feel like, and I know this is a cliche, but I do feel like it's bigger than me. Like, like you could take my name out of it and well, I mean, some of it matters, like the adoption and the abandonment shit kind of leads into other stuff. But you really could strip my name out of it, strip Amber's name out of it. And I feel like still people would connect with just what is going on. So that's what I say. Well, that's what I mean when I say it's bigger than me. Like, they don't have to say Mark Torphy on the front. I could give a fuck about that. Right. It just, I really feel like I've gotten the responses too, like guys like, yo, you damn near described exactly what's going on in my marriage. Like from guys. I had one of my closest friends who we know, but I won't exploit.
Okay.
He actually called me in tears. And he was like, I had no idea. Now, of course, his tears were a lot because, you know, he just felt my pain.
Yeah.
But still, like, and you know, being a writer, like, you don't want people to feel bad necessarily, but you want to evoke emotion.
Right.
And so the fact that it evokes emotion, that's again bigger than me, but it was everything that I hoped for.
There were some scenes that were really, to be quite honest, they were hard for me to get through because I suffer from anxiety. I have for years without knowing what it was, without not having a name for it. So the whole downward spiral where your mind won't shut off, and then the scenarios that your mind conjures up are real to you.
Oh my God.
They're real and they're not, they don't even exist. But in your head, they are so real that they cause almost a physical reaction. You know what I mean? And I was reading that in your book and I was like, whew.
And it's funny because as I was writing it, I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to describe how real this shit actually feels. I can say it, I can use all these beautiful adjectives, whatever, but I really don't know if people are going to understand, like, and it'll take the tiniest bit of truth, the tiniest bit, and create this whole thing that is 100% accurate in your mind.
Yep.
Having no idea if that shit ever happened ever in life. But in your mind, it is absolute fact.
It's a fact.
It was only recently that I realized. But so in my head, this nigga Grant from the book, Lex Luthor, like the worst villain ever. And only in my head did I realize he's probably a dumb nigga just like me. Like, and he just listening to her and she lying. And you know what I'm saying? Like, he's probably the nicest dude ever and just like me. But, you know, in my head, like I created him to be this evil criminal. Right. And I'm sure he was not. So it's that. Yeah, it's the scenarios like when I went through, I talked about it in the beginning of the book, when I went through unfriending everybody, like, nigga, I was on a mission. Like, fuck her. Yeah. Like, in my head, I swear I was in 300, like, just chopping heads off. Like, every night. And I know, and afterwards, I was like, man, them people didn't do nothing to you. Like, it took me a second to get there, though. Right. But I know they didn't do nothing. And I still ain't spoke to none of them. But they didn't do nothing. And I realized, like, it takes, I think the reason, the thing that was so scary about being undiagnosed is that you don't know that that's happening. Right. Once you realize that it is anxiety and or depression, then you can actually kind of step outside of yourself and be like, yeah, I was bugging. But that's before, if you don't have a diagnosis, you have no idea, and it's real.
It's real.
So that's why I'm thankful. And I was telling somebody else that I'm thankful that I got diagnosed, because at least now I know what I'm fighting, and I know what I'm dealing with, and I know what the villain looks like. Like, it looks like me making up shit, and it looks like me creating horrible scenarios that don't exist. Like, I get that now, but in the moment, nah, I was on fire.
Right. So you mentioned your marriage dissolving and then this new relationship after that. So do they both know about the book? Because they're alluded to in the book. Have they read it?
Yeah. Neither of them I didn't think would read it, but they're both very aware. Like, and my kids I gave my kids, the first 3 copies. So there are books actually sitting at my ex-wife's house. She ain't gonna read it.
So what do your kids think about the book? Have they read it?
Yeah, so it's funny. I don't know if Brooklyn has finished it. I don't know if Brandon has started it. I gave it to Chris, I think it was like a Wednesday. And just, he was here, we were just hanging out, gave it to him. He went downstairs, didn't see him for a couple of hours, came back up, got something to eat. Next morning, he was like, I finished your book. I was like, that's what the fuck you've been doing?
Wow.
Like, you didn't say nothing? Yeah, he
Wow.
literally went down there and did not stop until he was done. Like, I mean, he slept and then woke up reading again and then came up and was like, I finished. And then he wrote me, and man, I hope I don't get into tears now, but he wrote me the sweetest Father's Day note. And it was
Oh.
like, I didn't realize the stuff that was going on with you. And I'm so glad that I've spent more time at your spot. Like, and it was so sweet, but a lot of it was based on him knowing, because I'm thinking like, man, this is gonna tell y'all a lot of stuff about me. You probably, most people probably don't want to know about their parents.
Right.
But he took it like a champ. And like I said, was super sweet about approaching me and just, saying how much he loves me anyway. He understands what I'm suffering through and all that other stuff. Like, it was super sweet.
Yeah, I mean, being open and honest about yourself and the things you're going through is one thing, but being open and honest about it to the world is completely different.
Yeah.
And I have to commend you really on just your honesty in this book. I really hope that it gets a wide readership, because I think as a Black man, it's important for that story to be told, because there's this narrative that if you're a Black man, you really can't emote, you can't you can't be vulnerable, you can't show pain, those kinds of things. And this book is important for that reason.
Well, and I thank you for saying that, and I hope that it is too. That segues me into a little bit of a plug that this is the first edition. There's more to the story, and so I'm actually in the process of finishing up 5 additional chapters that are going to go into the second edition, and that edition is what I had national marketing for. So that's when I'm going to go try to get in bookstores and really try to get it out there.
Nice.
I say all that to say though, that's one of the reasons that I wanted it, just being a Black man. Like, and I wanted to get into the hands of other Black men, because there is this thing about like, we're not supposed to cry, man, fuck that girl, like, that whole attitude. But it's not, it don't always go down like that. Like we're human. We fall in love, we feel, we get angry, we get sad, like all of that. And it is important to know that just if you have those feelings, that don't make you a punk, that don't make you like nothing other than you're a Black man too, and you're still a human. But a lot of the thought was, I mean, that's the reason why I took the picture on the back of the book in a hoodie. Like, I'm gonna show this, but like that. Because like, everybody was like, well, why don't you put on a little button-up shirt? And I'm like, no, because that's not how I roll.
That's not you.
Right. But that's also not the image that I want, because like, I didn't go in this wanting to look like an author. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I wanted this to be a book about a regular ass dude, tells a regular ass story. He just got, because everybody got a story.
Right.
But I wanted it to be a regular dude with a regular story that people can connect with and see that, I'm a regular Black dude just like everybody else.
Right. Okay, so, I had to ask you this.
Yep. You
wrote the book. You wrote an extra 5 chapters. Are you going to be a writer now?
Probably not. And so that's the reason why there's going to be a second edition and not a follow-up book.
Okay.
Because I'm like, let's finish it all with this book. Now I'll say probably not. I will never close the door on it, but I don't know if I'm gonna have some more shit to say. Like, and I don't want to just write just because. I mean, but if there's something else to talk about, absolutely. Like, I thought about a second book, because this wasn't on my radar, and I always wanted to write one. My original book was gonna be about my adoption, and just kind of being an adopted kid with white parents and how I moved through life. And so that still may be on the horizon, but I touched on some of those things in here. And so part of me doesn't want to be redundant. Like I said, I just, I was nervous if people were going to be interested in this. So it's just you kind of go through that, like, does anybody care? Like, will anybody, does anybody want this? And so, I mean, sure, if I feel it, I'll write it. If I don't, but no, I don't plan on having the author, like, that being just the thing. Hopefully it'll open up other opportunities and I'll be able to do other stuff. But
So I know you changed the names to protect the innocent, but at this point, those of us in the crew, we know who you're talking about, right?
Of course.
So were you concerned at all about, because this story is not just about you, it's also about your relationships, and it's about a very specific relationship. So and a lot of the story is centered around that relationship. So were you concerned at all about any backlash when you were writing?
Well, so no, for a lot of reasons. Wasn't concerned about legal backlash. I talked to an attorney about, and he was the one that suggested I change the names. And between you and I wanted the names to be like super ass close, but that would have got me in trouble though. Like I really wanted it to be close. That's a little bit of petty in me, but I wanted it to be close. But he suggested. So I mean, the name still has significance.
Yes.
But it's not. It is different enough. And I was given the advice that other than people who are familiar with you and or the story, this person should not be able to be found out who they are.
Right.
And so that was my mental, so as long as it's not y'all, a random person can't figure out who this is.
Yeah.
And they can't. I used a pretty common name for it.
Yeah. Yeah, you did.
But no, in terms of backlash from that person, no. And the main reason is because there is not one lie in that book. And I made sure. So there's no slander, there's none of that, because nothing is a lie. Like I went, and that was part of the process too. And part of the process that was really hard for me, I had to go through old text messages, old emails, old letters, because I wanted to make sure that I was being accurate, because you can't come at me saying that any part of this is wrong. Now, I was also very clear that I felt like such and such.
Yes.
So we're going to remove that from fact, but all the facts are absolutely 100% accurate.
When you were going through this whole process of writing this book, were you in touch with your therapist, and were you kind of like talking to him or her and telling them, what you were doing?
Absolutely. I actually gave my therapist a copy of one of the drafts. But it was more so just so she could kind of get what's in my head, and we didn't talk about it directly. She's very happy for me though that I got it finished and all that. But no, I wanted to keep her in the loop, just as I do with everything else, as to the important stuff that was going on with me. So yeah, she was in the process. She's actually going to be, not her so much, but therapy is going to be a focal point of one of the chapters of the new edition. Okay. So yeah, she is definitely every step of the way with me throughout this journey until I grow out of her or she stops practicing or whatever. She has been, I've told her before, she saved my life. There was, and not that I had any suicide ideations or anything like that, but just where I was, I can't see how I would have gotten through that without her. Because there were times where literally I was only living for the kids. And she was helping me talk through that stuff. So yeah, she absolutely, I told her that actually often, that she saved my life.
So, and that was another thing too about the book, is the importance of therapy. And I think, I think times are changing now where you're starting to see a movement, especially amongst Black people, to go to therapy. Where before, it was that whole narrative of Black people don't go to therapists. Right. And that was a white thing. Right. I was so glad that there are several things that I'm starting to see that I'm just so happy about. The whole NAP ministry. There's an IG page called the NAP ministry. And it's the importance of rest, of particularly of Black people getting rest. And however that looks, it doesn't necessarily have to be a nap. It could be you walk outside, you take a break and do something other than work or be stressed about being Black. And then this whole move about therapy, which was I'm so glad to see that now, and your book really kind of pushed that idea forward about how therapy played a really big role in you kind of coming to terms with what your mind is doing, you know, and what's real and what's just your mind overworking, dreaming up scenarios, things like that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, so I think people are just now, and probably not even quite, realizing the effects of the pandemic. Like,
yeah,
because it was hard, and so yes, you're going through day to day, and yeah, you got extra time to do stuff, and you may sleep in because you don't have to clock in at work, and you can just be on Zoom with your camera off, whatever is going on. But it really took a lot to be isolated. And for me, I mean, I had my kids come in every other week. So it was cool. And then Christian, because he wasn't in the building, he started to stay. And so he would stay a week at a time. So I did have that. But now I got to not have anything. There were some of those days where the kids wasn't here and I was just like, what the fuck? And so I would either sleep to try to not think about it or just do other stuff. Like, you're talking to anybody who wants to have a conversation, because you really need an outlet. Yeah. So yeah, my therapist was huge because she was doing telehealth. Thank God. Yeah. And just being able to talk it through, I think that's so necessary. Like, I look at mental health the same way as I look at physical health. Absolutely. And I think just the same way you have a doctor and you go for your physical every year, you need maintenance on your mental health. You may feel fine, but I think it's still talking to somebody once a quarter. Just checking in, everything. And then if you need them more, use them more. Right. But still just checking in. I think that health insurance needs to be better about covering mental health. Yes. All of that, and so that is my mental health journey, and my therapy journey is what has got me in grad school. Because I never thought I'd go back to school. Ever. I became a CPA because I was told you could take the CPA exam and never have to go to school again. Because that was the top of the profession. So I'm like, I could take this test and be done. Finished it. Yeah. Never, ever thought I was going back to school. But because of my journey, and I realized it during the pandemic. And I had been looking for something different to do for probably 5 to 10 years. Like, I was just like, man, this tax shit, I'm tired of it. I'm burnt out. I don't want to go through tax seasons no more, blah, blah, blah. I never loved it going in anyway. And so I was looking for something, and I feel like God spoke to me. It was my journey. I had asked my therapist, I was looking for a Black male for my son. And she was just like, you know what? I only know of 2, and I wouldn't even recommend one of them. And I'm thinking, like, we're in Atlanta. This is the blackest city in the world. Like, are you telling me there's only 2 and one of them sucks? Like, really? Right. So that was like, okay, there's room then. There's room for me. Right. And then I know that there are other guys that need it. And just like you said, it's becoming a conversation now, and I wanted to be part of that conversation. I definitely wanted to make sure that people that look like me and that have gone through shit, like, I want to be what I wished I had at 20. Right. And so, yeah, I'm here for it. I'm here for the young cats that, didn't expect to live to 18, and now they're 21 and they're like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm here for them. I'm here for the cats that went through trauma. I'm here for the cats that are struggling in their marriage and they don't know why. Like, all of it, I'm here for. So do you see your book going, just kind of segue off of that, do you see your book being used in different arenas kind of as a teaching tool eventually? Yes and no. So I don't look at it like, like when you do stuff, people got all kind of, bless their heart, they got all kind of suggestions. Of course. You need to add a workbook and you need to do it. So I don't see it like that. Right. I don't even want it to be in the self-help section. But I do want it to be able to touch people and help. And so, yes, I do want it in the hands of mental health professionals. I do want it in the hands of prisons even. Like, places where, I don't say this because I want it to help everybody, but especially men. I want it to be where men are struggling, wherever that is. So that could be at the house, that could be at school, that could be at the doctor, that could be wherever men are struggling. I want it to help. But I don't want it just for men, because I've heard a lot of great things from women like, oh, there was a woman that called me and she was like, this sounds like my marriage. And I think my husband was going through the exact same thing. We didn't talk about it. She like that. And so she's going to buy a copy for him, even though they don't speak. I'm like, that's the kind of stuff that I love to hear. Like, you know, if it moved you and you think it'll help somebody, I absolutely want that.
Wow.
And I'm open to these kind of discussions. Like, I know a lot of people have questions. I've always been the type that I would rather you ask me than make up some shit in your own mind of what you think the answer is. Nope, just ask. I'll tell you.
Right.
And so anything about this, anything about the adoption, about the abandonment stuff, like all of that, I'm willing to talk about because I want people to have the right information, at least as far as I'm concerned.
Right, right. So let's talk about the adoption. I know you don't want to get too far into it because a lot of that is talked about in the book, but let's talk about that. So you mentioned that you were adopted by a white couple, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So give me details about that. So how old were you and what's the background information on that?
So my mom and dad, my mom couldn't have kids. And so they adopted my brother first, my brother Aaron. Mm-hmm. And he is biracial, white and black. And they got him like straight from the hospital. I think he was a week old. Mm-hmm. And then I came along, I was 1.5 when they got me. And Aaron is 1.5 years older than me. So he was 3 by the time I came into the house. Just the 2 of us, we grew up together. It's so weird because the east side of Milwaukee, not just the east side and Sherman Park, for whatever was breeding ground, it seemed like, for adopted kids. So all of the kids of color in my neighborhood, except for one family that I can think of, they were all adopted. Anytime you see a black kid, he's adopted and his parents are white. And so, as weird as it sounds, I grew up in a I can run 5 families like right off the rip within a 3-block radius. White parents, black kids, you know. And so it was different, but it was kind of normalized in our neighborhood. So there are a bunch of us, have friends across the street, down the street. One of the things that I mentioned in my book that I struggled with, because I was always looking for my blackness. Now, granted, I don't know a lot of their individual stories, but from my perspective, it only looked like there were a couple of us that were concerned, like, you know, for example, my brother, and I don't want to speak for him, but he didn't seem like he cared. He didn't care about his biological parents. He still doesn't. He didn't care, like, he's biracial. He seemed to navigate more inside of white culture. Biracial, obviously, he has a perfect right to do that. But for me, it was like, you know, I would hear about black families going to Tennessee and the kids staying for the summer and all that. Like, I love that shit. And so by the time you and I met, I was knee deep into searching for my blackness. Like, I probably started at the beginning of breakdancing or whatever. But yeah, by that time, I was in it. I had my best friend, Brad. We were in the streets going everywhere.
Shout out to Brad.
Yeah.
Shout out to Brad. Coolest brother in the world.
We was doing all kinds, we were just everywhere. And like I mentioned, I made a joke of it, but like he was kind of like my ghetto tour guide. Like, I'm trying to experience all this stuff. He already know all this stuff, but he not judging me for not knowing. And I think that was the biggest thing that I was so scared of, is that, man, people find out I got white parents, like they're gonna look at me crazy, blah, blah, blah. Obviously, more anxiety, more making up shit in my head. Right. But nah, he didn't judge me, and so I felt comfortable. And so literally, every party, everything that was going on, we was trying to be at. And that was my exposure to Milwaukee's North Side, Milwaukee's black culture, all of that. But I always had it in my head that I wanted it. It's probably one of the reasons I married a black woman, because I wanted to be, establish the black Torphys, so to speak. I felt like it was my responsibility to create whatever it was, because I didn't have a playbook. I didn't know what black kids adopted to white parents looked like for me in the future. Different strokes wasn't a real thing. So I had no idea. So I had to create whatever my future was going to look like. So, and I wanted my future. I wanted my kids to be black. I wanted my wife to be black. I wanted to create this black family. Obviously, with some of the stuff that, I grew up with a lot of positive stuff that you can call it white. It doesn't necessarily have to equate to culture, but I wanted to add that too. Like, the black Torphys was just going to be my descendants, and they was gonna have me, and they was gonna have my wife's family, and all this other stuff, and they're all gonna be happily ever after. But in my head, that's what it looked like, and so I've been seeking that since I was a kid. Like I probably didn't taste greens until college, typical Black stuff. Like
yeah.
I just didn't have it.
I remember
never tasted a chitterling. and I say it
right.
with all the syllables too, though.
Your chitterlings.
Yep.
Yes.
I don't know what that shit is about.
It's all right because, to be quite honest, we ain't really, the Black Committee or the Committee on Blackness in the U.S. really has kind of scratched that off the list as far as, a necessary component of Blackness.
Good.
Yeah. I think that no longer is on the list.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so typical stereotypical stuff like that. Mm-hmm. I just didn't have it in my background.
Yeah. Because I remember when you used to rap back in the day. I think that was when we met.
That's around when we met.
Yeah.
I would see.
It's like freshman year in high school.
Yeah. Somewhere around there.
Somewhere around there. Yeah. Has your mom read the book?
Mm-hmm. My mom and my biological mother. So I do have a good relationship. Well, my biological father passed away 3 years ago, but we had a good relationship up until he passed. I met them both when I was around 30. And so, but my biological mother, she lives in Georgia, and we have a really good relationship too. So yeah, they both got early copies. And they both have read through. I always feel bad because my mom always, she feels a guilt about my depression, like there's something she could have done. And I always try to reassure her that there's nothing that she could, this is kind of how I was born. And she gave me I would tell anybody and screaming from the rooftop, I had a great childhood. Yeah. She gave me all the love I needed, all of that. I just was in a unique situation. And so there was stuff that I needed to feel, nothing she could have done. My biological mother gave me the perfect opportunity. So I'm grateful to her. And I think she has a sense of guilt too about giving me up, which I get, but it all worked out wonderfully.
It all worked out, yeah.
So I don't want either of them to feel guilty about any of this. This is great. This is just me navigating life as a person, though, and having my own obstacles that I got to deal with. But it ain't nothing about them.
Yeah, yeah. What are your main takeaways or things you want your readers to take away?
So even before those two, I think the main takeaway from it that I've always wanted is we gotta fucking be nice to people. You have no idea most of the time. I mean, people that know me, you obviously didn't know what was going on. You have no idea what's going on with people. Give people grace and be nice. You could be the only nice person to them that entire day. You don't know.
Right.
Just be nice, and it don't cost you nothing.
Really.
So that is probably my biggest thing. Be nice and be considerate. I get there's a whole movement on social media about and I feel like it's convoluted. And it's live your truth and forget how it makes anybody feel and all this stuff. I get that to an extent. Yeah. Because you do have to live in your truth. And you're not subject to other people's rules necessarily about it. Be considerate though. Right. I'm saying you don't have to be a dick about it. I think that's my biggest thing. And I feel like for example, when I think about Amber and I think about how we split, the fact that we didn't work is not a problem for me. The fact that I wasn't her knight in shining armor, I'm quite okay with that. I am not okay with how she walked away. And because, in my opinion, it dishonored the 35 years of friendship that we had put in prior. The lying, all of that stuff, it was so unnecessary. And
because you guys had known each other for years.
Freshman year of high school.
Yeah.
I mean, and been like this, platonic, but have been like this for 30 plus. So I think that, and I just bring her up as an example, I just don't feel like you need to crap on people when you're living your truth. You can live your truth. You don't need to answer to people, but you don't need to shit on people either. And so I feel like that gets lost in the message of, oh, don't worry about what they think and blah, blah. Okay, yes, don't live your life for other people. But again, you don't have to be foul about it.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing. What I want people to take from me as a man, just that, like, I'm just a man. You know, this depression, my depression ain't gonna look like everybody else's. And this is just a glimpse into the mind of one individual. But people are struggling and people go through stuff. And so not necessarily that you gotta walk on eggshells, but just be considerate and think about, like, you know, your husband, your boyfriend, your brother, your father, like everybody has stuff. And it was easy for me to forgive my father for a lot, my biological father, just because, like, he got 6 kids from 5 different women, and he ain't raised none of us. Now, I was the only one that was adopted, but he didn't raise none of us. He raised Ray, and that's the best one. So it's like, he didn't do a good job, but I absolutely do believe 100% he did the best he could. And so with his own demons. And so that, to me, that's what it's about. Like, everybody.
How freeing is that? How freeing is that to have that revelation about your parents? Because, you know, for a long time I held, you know, and a lot of people go through that, where I held, you know, some resentment to both my parents at one point or another.
Right.
And that time, that day, that minute where I was kind of like, I don't know what I was going through, but it was one of those things where whatever I was going through revealed that to me. And it was like, your parents did the best they could.
Because I think what happens is you realize that your parents are people.
Right.
Like, we look at our parents like, oh, they just are parents.
And
like,
they were people before they were parents.
You know what I'm saying? Right. You were put here for me. That's all that matters, blah, blah. But no, our parents are people. And they got their own shit, and they were raised their own way and all that other stuff. And so, yeah, once I realized that, I was like, okay, I'm sure he probably, my father's father died when he was 4, I think. And it was sudden, like he was killed, if I remember the story correctly. But like, stuff like that. So, you know, I get, it was the 70s. Wasn't no condoms around, clearly, so, you know, he was doing all kind of stuff. So I get that you're young, you got kids because you wild and free. You really ain't got no money. You have no idea what to do. Like, that doesn't excuse his behavior. So I get it. He's a person. Yeah. And so, yeah, it's the point, I think, when you realize your parents are not just your parents, but they're people.
Exactly.
That you really can figure, like, okay, they, you know, like, there are things about my mom that, you know, they may drive me nuts, but that's just her. Like, that's who she is. Yeah. I can't get mad. I'm sure it's mad shit about me that drives everybody crazy too. That's just who I am. Like,
I mean, yeah, I may go.
Right.
They'll never see me do it.
Right. But, you know, I'll work on it. And maybe I'll get through it, and maybe I won't. Yeah. It is my journey. You know what
exactly.
I'm gonna try not to be an asshole about it to you, but I'll work on it. Like, it's that. So I definitely want people to realize, like, my story is mine. And so don't look at your husband thinking that he's doing the shit that I was doing, because he might not be. We don't know. Right. But yeah, just hopefully this book allows people to give other people grace. Get an understanding that other people are going through shit too, you know, because everybody goes through stuff. And so when we're going through stuff, we tend to focus on our own. But just because I'm going through shit, that doesn't mean I can be mean to you, because you got your own shit. Right. So that kind of thing. I want people to give each other grace and be nicer, because you know, we all go through stuff. Absolutely. And I'm very thankful. I definitely wanted to get this out. I'm very thankful, because I went through that, whereas I was like, you know, I know my friends gonna buy it because they're my friends and they're nice. But, you know, I'm actually asking niggas to read a 250-page fucking book. Like, that's a lot to ask. You know what I mean? To somebody that don't read, that's a lot to ask. Right. And people are reading. And so I'm
seeing the comments and the reviews and stuff, man.
And so that's what I'm saying. I'm so thankful for that. Like, wow, like, these people are actually going through it. People are telling me they can't put it down. Like, what writer don't want to hear that? You know what I mean? So I'm very thankful for people giving it the time and people actually reading it, and then people telling me, you know, how they felt about it. Even the stuff like, somebody was like, dude, I wanted to fight you. And I was like, yeah, I know, because I was stupid, right? Like, like, I'm with you. I wanted to fight me too. But just those comments too, like, I like all of it, because it just shows me that you were engaged. And the fact that I got you engaged with 250 pages, that means the world to me.
Right. Okay, so tell the people how they can buy your book.
It is www.runawaytrainthebook.com. It will be coming out on Amazon soon. It is not yet, though. Their distribution process is long, and I don't want to get into that. But you can get it straight from me. And while you're still getting it straight from me, I am still signing copies. So order it from me. I will still sign the copies, and I'll get them out right away. Again, www.runawaytrainthebook.com.
Are you having any more book signings or anything?
With the second edition.
With the second edition, okay.
Yeah, with the second edition, I will have one here, and I definitely will have one in Milwaukee, and then we'll just kind of see how it does. And if I have the opportunity to have them elsewhere, I'm happy to do so. I will probably, and you and I talked about this, I will probably do a Zoom kind of book club kind of thing, where we just have a conversation like this, and we're a Q&A, I answer questions. I may read some of it, but I will probably do that within the next couple of weeks. So hopefully your readers will look out for that. All
right. So thank you, Mark. First of all, me and you down like 4 flat tires.
Amen.
And so I'm so happy that you wrote this book. I'm so happy. I'm so happy that you allowed me to be part of the process as well.
Which I thank you for. I am so grateful for you. And I thank you for this, but I definitely thank you for your early eyes and your edits and all of that.
Yeah. So. Let me tell y'all, it is a page turner.
Thank you.
I'm just going to say this.
I appreciate it.
Page turner.
Definitely appreciate it.
Yes. And I know at some point I was just like, wow, this is so familiar to me. Just that whole frenzy and all of, the thoughts and the uncontrollable I've been there. And I was like, somebody finally painted a picture of what it's like. You read like fictional accounts and people and you can tell they don't suffer from it. They don't live with it because it's always like super dramatic and cinematic, and it's not the tiny little voice inside that won't shut the hell up.
Right.
It's not that.
Right.
Yeah. I've woken up in the middle of the night thinking about something I said to someone else months before that suddenly now feels like it was a terrible thing for me to say.
I'm not laughing, but I can relate.
You know what I'm saying? Like now all of a sudden I'm worried about at 3 o'clock in the morning, out of a deep sleep, like coming out of a deep sleep, like you shouldn't have said that stuff to what's her name? Because you was wrong for that. And keep me up worrying about that.
Yeah, like people that's one of my issues. And I don't know if I touched on it, but like the sleep factor.
Yeah.
The voices that it's so funny because like people will wake up and use the bathroom or get up, like teachers getting up early for work, and they'll text me because they forgot something, and I'll respond. And they'll be like, what the fuck are you doing up? Dude, I'll just be up. Like, I was up. I responded to somebody's text because I was up this morning at like 5.
Mm-hmm.
They were like, what is going on? What's crazy is my answer is, I'm always up.
I'm always up, yeah.
Because I am. Like, if you text me at 3:30, 90% chance I'm up.
Mm-hmm. It's real. I actually had to get a prescription for a sleep aid during the pandemic, when the pandemic started. Because in the pandemic, my insomnia was on a whole nother.
I can imagine.
I mean, I was up watching Perry Mason, like.
Not sleeping, like that affects everything.
Everything.
Because now you're groggy the next day, you're not thinking right, push your shit back in your schedule. Like, it really, really can mess with you. Now, thank God I have a flexible schedule right now, but I got to get it together because I'm about to start getting more structure.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to do that because I'll literally be up at 5, just like, ain't nobody to talk to. I'm scrolling, and when you're scrolling at 5 in the morning, ain't no new shit out there because everybody's
right. You just keep refreshing.
So I'm looking at the same damn cat videos that I've been looking at all day night. Like, it's crazy as hell.
Are you the one that writes "who up" on
No.
your status? Like, I've seen those who up statuses.
I'm the one that responds to the who's up status. I'll be like, look at me. I'll go through like a 2-week wave where I'm just up. And sometimes the only way to end that wave is to smoke. So I've got some smoke stuff that will put me down, like a damn horse tranquilizer. And so, because I enjoy weed, I try not to use it for that. But sometimes, man, I need some damn sleep. Like,
right.
This is not working. So,
and see, I can, everybody was like, do you drink wine? I'm like, I can't do that because wine, first of all, doesn't really have that effect on me. And wine gives me migraines. So I'm like, the last thing I need is some red wine before I go to bed. Because I'll really be up then.
Yeah, with a migraine, that would be horrible.
Yeah, and that's why I don't drink. But the medication they gave me works. It doesn't knock me out. What it does is it takes that running ticker tape of thought that's always going through my head and it puts it here.
Okay.
So it's still there and I can kind of hear it, but it becomes this hum and I can go to sleep.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, that's perfect because I don't want to be knocked out.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't like using the horse tranquilizer level weed either. But it's every once in a while. It's like, yes, I need some sleep because I got some stuff that I have to be focused on.
Right.
But yeah, I try not to medicate. I try to let it go and figure out other methods.
Shoot, I was desperate.
Yeah.
I was like, give me drugs to help me
sometimes
sleep.
It be like that.
Yeah, I was like, I've had enough.
Yeah.
I was starting to call people by my cat's names. Be like, Niobe. Sarah, I'm sorry. But yeah, I want to thank you, Mark, for taking time out during this game. I have it on in the background.
Okay, I haven't looked yet. I'm not.
I haven't looked. I have literally been at this screen right now. I'm not looking over there. But I want to thank you so much for taking time out of your day to kind of meet with me and talk over your book and your process and things like that. I appreciate your time and I appreciate your work.
I thank you for having me. I love stuff like this. Like, obviously, me and you could talk for hours. So.
We have.
Right. But no, I thank you, like I said, for all your help in this process and just giving me a chance to talk about it.
Yeah.
And hopefully, I'm hoping that a bunch of people see it. And I love stuff like this. Yeah.
Once again, tell everybody where to get the book.
www.runawaytrainthebook.com.
Awesome. All right, everybody. It's a wrap for this episode of the Biblio Geek. So I will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.